Okay. Our our next speaker up is Wayne Miller. I've known Wayne since 2018 when he joined the Venture Center as executive director. The Venture Center is a globally recognized nonprofit entrepreneur support organization producing award winning, revenue generating financial technology accelerator programs for the world's biggest financial services organizations. Bringing over 4 decades of experience in a variety of industries and leadership roles, Miller's combination of entrepreneurial achievement and his Fortune 100 experience makes for an executive who is comfortable in startup and mature business environments. Before joining the Venture Center in 2017, Wayne spearheaded the growth and development of a dozen businesses, including private equity-based medical device manufacturing, two startup technology companies in the healthcare and cybersecurity verticals, and was COO of a $45 million transport and logistics company. He served as CEO of startup internet advertising company AdMine and as director of business development for Proxicom, an internet consulting and development company, and as national director of business development for the Big Five professional services firm Deloitte. Prior to Deloitte, Miller held a variety of leadership roles in the Hillrom Company and taught entrepreneurship at the University of Maryland as an adjunct professor. Under Miller's leadership, the Venture Center has been recognized globally by a globally renowned fintech industry leader, Finovate, and as 2020 FinTech Accelerator as a Arkansas Business 2021 Nonprofit of the Year. Wayne currently resides in Little Rock, Arkansas, and Bethany Beach, Delaware, with his wife Tony, and enjoys serving on several boards as an advisor to ULR's business school. Wayne attended University of Pittsburgh in his hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Take it away, Wayne.
Thanks, Eugene. I am, of course, am humbled by this group that I have an opportunity to present to today. But well, listen, I said, Sam, I have a team of 9. So when I listened to your presentation today, my concern was preventing them from all going feral. So good job there, and obviously big shoes to fill here. But first of all, thank you for the opportunity. Again, I'm humbled to sit in front of some folks that I know many very well and some not so much, but I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize a couple of folks like Eugene and Kim. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity today also to recognize my board members who are present today. James Hendren, of course, who was the founder of the Venture Center, Collins Andrews, Bill Yoder, and I don't know if I'm missing anybody there, but I couldn't do the work that I do at the Venture Center. We couldn't be who we are today without their involvement. And many of you, Abby, of course, others who have participated, CJ, so many of you have touched the Venture Center in so many ways, and that is why we are a community organization. As Eugene mentioned, we are a nonprofit. Most of you know us. Some people get the Tech Park and the Venture Center a little bit confused. We are the tenant of the 6th floor of the Tech Park, and thanks to the generosity of the Tech Park and the collaboration that we do with them, we've had a chance to enjoy that space, and many of you have been there. We certainly look forward to having you back as these things start to unfold again. Our fundamental mantra is about education, collaboration, and acceleration, and it's kind of an approach that we coined when I stepped into the executive director's role, now going on to about 4 years. It is just that we want to be a source to help educate our entrepreneurs. We want to be highly collaborative with UALR, with U of A, and folks like Larry and so forth, with the large corporates that are part of our, and even the small companies that are part of our ecosystem here in Little Rock, and be able to bring to bear workforce development and those sorts of efforts that help grow our community, grow jobs, and obviously grow workforce. And lastly, most people recognize us for the work that we've done in the fintech space, specifically with FIS and the ICBA, respectively, but really helping to quickly accelerate these companies to market and help grow them into meaningful companies, and hopefully, in part of that process, bring them to Little Rock to headquarter and grow. I think it's always important to kind of give a little bit of an oversight to the programming that we do. We just completed Jolt, which many of you know is a cyber challenge that we've done now for 6.5 years, 7 years, which is a workforce development program that we've put together that helps to teach and to grow our workforce to more effectively handle the challenges of cyber. We're grateful to folks like Bill Yoder and ACDS who also help support us in this process as a sponsor, and also folks like First Orion and Axiom and so forth. We do a variety of programs on the community side. We do about 60 a year. And obviously, as we got into COVID, we were unable to do these in our space up on the 6th floor. But what was interesting, and I think one of the themes of my conversation today, is how we were able to expand our reach and our depth, working virtually to bring some of this programming to folks who likely would not have come to downtown Little Rock and enjoyed an hors d'oeuvre and a glass of wine with us, but more importantly, a chance to expand our reach even beyond Arkansas, which has been pretty terrific. Just at a high level, Lift the Rock has been very much sort of our rendition of Million Cups at the Kauffman Foundation, which gives a platform for entrepreneurs to talk about what they're doing, and also for the community to respond, to see how we can be helpful there. Pitch and Pint has been a huge success. We're getting ready to kick one off here a little bit later this year. That's been an opportunity for entrepreneurs to present their ideas and concepts in more of a Shark Tank type of an environment, where we give them a little bit of seed capital to hopefully take their idea to the next level, and obviously mentorship and support around that. Things like Fireside Chat, you've seen, hopefully, and many of you have been to these networking events and these opportunities that we've had at the Venture Center, where we recognize some of the great entrepreneurs in our community who have built extraordinary businesses to come talk about their journey and their story. As we all know, and many of you have done this on today, is building a business is a tough process, can be lonely and very challenging, and not without its highs and lows, as we all know. So it's great to get some motivation and inspiration from people who have done that, talk about that journey. There are other things that we do here, but most of this is about creating the right content, obviously the right connections, and hopefully giving them a path to capital as well as it relates to starting businesses in our community. And just to clarify too, for us, it's not just about tech companies. It's not about building the next Google. It's not about unicorn hunting. It's also very important, and something we've tried to do. I think we've done it well, is during the pandemic to be highly supportive to our small businesses who struggled through this pandemic. And as we work with community banking, and I'll talk a little bit about that, we played a big role in helping get technology rolled out, and very specifically with a company called Tesla. And many of you know Joe. And I think he's just become a member, in fact. But Joe actually processed over 20% of the PPP loans this past year and was the second highest user of DocuSign in the country. So Joe's success has been remarkable. We're obviously glad to have been a part of that. But it's been a good platform for us to also help, obviously, our community and our small businesses, which are so vital. The last part of this that I think is important as we look at the community programming is we do care, we focus, and we put a lot of effort into those who are underserved and less privileged as it relates. If you look at our Spark cohort, which is sort of a pre-accelerator, our last cohort was 100% folks of color, which was wonderful. But more importantly, we're trying to make sure that those resources, which have become more abundant than ever before, and I like to quote Darren Williams a little bit, who suggests that we want to make sure that this is a movement, not a moment, as it relates to that, but that we're getting the resources, the content, again, the capital, and the resources that folks in those underserved communities need to build great businesses and to bring jobs and obviously revenue to those communities. I know that this is not news to most of the folks on here, and I don't want to steal John Chamberlain's thunder, but we are here in the presence of Generational, of course, with Elizabeth and Vance, as we talk about the work that Walter did. I oftentimes lead my presentations around the world and also around the country when I talk about Arkansas, because oftentimes people ask the question, Wayne, why the heck Arkansas? And we're able to give great relevance to the fact, and I make a joke that it took us 1,968 years to create the first fintech, of course, which was Systematics, and it certainly changed a lot from there. But as I've worked with John and Collins and James and others, as we look at this history, it's very important to us, and it creates such relevance to the work that we do here. And it's a privilege to sort of work in an indirect fashion to continue to try to foster the history that we've built here in Arkansas. And we're grateful that we have that to lean on. And we've educated a lot of people in this country to let them know this is where it all began. So hopefully a lot of them are acting as good ambassadors, and many of them do. So most of them sort of said they never knew that. So we're helping to do that. We're grateful for the great work and many of you who work for Systematics and obviously FIS and Axiom and so forth. So good stuff there. I'll get into the accelerators a little bit. The FIS program now, of course, is 6 years old. We just completed our 6th cohort at the end of October. And as of yesterday, actually just made our selection for the 4th cohort for the ICBA program. Collins and I had the pleasure of sharing our space a little bit with Congressman Hill and Emory yesterday, and always interesting to share with them kind of the history and where we came from. But you know, when we launched this in 2015, we weren't exactly sure where this was going to go. It was really more of a marketing opportunity for FIS to, frankly, give them something to point to that says, "Hey, look, we're being innovative, right?" Or we're working with startups. And of course, the program has evolved dramatically today to where we're really working with mature companies now that are, you know, due to the structure of the banking industry, of course, which is you know, it's a very difficult space to work in, as many of you know. If you have a startup and you're still in sort of a proof of concept stage or at an MVP stage and working off of a lean canvas and so forth, you're 12, 18, perhaps 24 months to really getting to market. And what we found was for FIS and also the ICBA is, well, that was interesting to them and it was great work and we enjoyed it. What we needed to do was have more shovel-ready solutions really for banking, really helping FIS kind of fill their white space on their roadmap, and also for the ICBA to really provide solutions for community banks that they can deploy tomorrow, that they can really put to work in their toolbox, obviously to help remain relevant and to be competitive. So our mixture of companies that we look at today, if you kind of look at them from an investment perspective, and I'll talk about that a little bit, they're really more in market with customers and have likely raised a pretty significant amount of capital. And I'll talk about that as we look at kind of our investment thesis a little bit in our selection thesis. The way we measure success is in a number of ways, but what's very important is what do our clients, what do FIS and ICBA gain from this? For FIS, about 25% or more of the cohort will engage with them in some sort of a contractual relationship that may be fundamentally very superficial to an LOI, or maybe just an option that we've seen where they're just going to promote that product in some fashion where they may get some compensation with it. But today our direction with FIS is much more about M&A opportunities and strategic relationships and technologies that enable them to advance their position. FIS, through the acquisition of WorldPay today, is much more of a payments company than they are a banking company. They're certainly being challenged in the way in which the cores sit today, and I'm sure Lance knows a heck of a lot more about this than I do, but you know, it's how do we connect to them? And before, I think banks relied almost 100% on their cores for innovation. Today, as we build out API level layers and so forth, that level of capacity to engage with the banks and not have to work through the core, but still work collaboratively with the core is something that is really gaining a lot of momentum. And obviously, we're seeing these API marketplaces which enable a bank to go on and really from a sushi menu select how they want to deal with mobile banking or how they want to do FX payments or you know, how they're going to work at a point of sale system, whatever the case may be. So that world has changed dramatically, and without question, COVID, as we we continue to take money out of the equation. I was at a store yesterday that said they had no change because they were unable to get any coins, right? So contactless payments, I don't insert my card anymore. I do everything wirelessly. So and very seldom even pull a credit card out today. And obviously that was advanced dramatically. I think by about 35% statistically during the pandemic. ICBA has been a wonderful relationship for us, and one that's easy to get passionate about as we look at the importance of community banking, not just to Arkansas, but to the country. We started working with them in about 4 years ago as we look at that. And FIS program had attracted the ICBA. They wanted to see what we were doing. And at that time, they were shopping nationally for a company to support them, help them build their innovation culture, but more importantly, their practice. And Kevin Tweddle and Tina DiGiorgio, who Kevin is the senior vice president of the ICBA, along with Rebecca Romero-Rainey, who operates and is CEO. And Tina heads their credit card division, TCM Bank, which is really the cash cow of the ICBA. As we know, they are a trade association and their focus is on lobbying, but their 4,500 members are certainly challenged with how the world changed, how fintech is affecting them, how big banks are causing their clients and more importantly their money to sort of leak out of the banks and so forth. So how could we help them? So one of the things that's important about our process is the way in which we go about sourcing companies. And we don't do that in a vacuum at the Venture Center. I think when we look at the first year of FIS, we were sort of picking the companies, telling them what we thought was cool. But when it comes to the ICBA and FIS today, we work with senior leadership, both in product as well as from the community bankers' perspective, try to understand what keeps them up at night. And through that creates sort of our shopping list by which we go to market. Venture Center today talks to well over 1,000 fintechs a year. Recruiting for us is always on. In fact, before this call today, I was talking to the West Coast and the East Coast, a founder in Boston and San Francisco at 7:30 this morning about an FX solution that they have. So it is something we're doing pretty much 24/7. But community banking has benefited from our relationship, and we've had a profound impact on community bankers' interest in innovating. About 80% of our companies today actually are engaged with community banks, and that means they are buying their products or services and putting them to work in these banks and in their communities. We're excited to see where this continues to go as we expand, and also we've been able to play a role in helping to educate community banking about innovation. We talked about I talked about Joe and Tesla. We stepped up in the early stages of COVID back in March and of 2020 and did a program on PPP because the community bankers said, hey, we need technology to help support us right now. What can you find out there? And we found 24 companies. We set up a panel of about 3 community bankers. We had these companies who were, interestingly enough, all fairly competitive, present to 600 bankers coast to coast who are looking for technology solutions to help support the current demand for the PPP loans. And we actually ended up having to do 2 of those. So we've been able to play a pretty important role to help support that and continue to do so. Always a chance to brag just a little bit, so you all know this. If you don't, you will today. We were recognized by Finovate as building the best fintech accelerator in the world, and also by the Banking Technology Awards in the UK, which recognized us for our relationship with FIS. And while the accolades are awesome and great, what's really important about this is that it continues to allow us to spread the word about what we're doing in Little Rock, expand our global footprint, and last and probably most importantly, helps us to get the attention of great companies who have great fintech solutions to bring to market. So it has benefited us in many ways. I talked a little bit about the venture perspective. I won't spend too much time on this, but we've sort of moved away from being on kind of the angel and seed capital line when it comes to the accelerator programs. Clearly, when we look at things for our community programming and entrepreneurs, that's a different perspective entirely. But this is where we're really finding traction, and for a host of reasons, which I sort of have mentioned already, but mostly so we're bringing solutions that are relevant that can be put to use today. These folks have gone through the vendor due diligence, they've gone through the regulatory gauntlet, they are in market. Most of them raised about $1 million in seed money. Most of them are either getting ready for an A round or have done an A round. We had a company from the UK who actually raised $1 billion called Oak North, which obviously was for the FIS program with a very mature solution. Colin spent a lot of time with those guys and continues to. But very good example of a company who's located in the UK who was looking to come to the US to create a beachhead for their business here. We also still have some fairly early stage stuff, but there is obviously along with this, there's been a high level of attraction, and we sort of felt like this would happen. We always very much focused on go to market, and we knew that if we did a great job with that ultimately those who wanted to invest in these companies would follow along, and that's precisely what happened. Today, we get the top 20 fintech VCs who also participate in our program, along with our subject matter experts and bankers, who not only refer companies to us because of the value of our program, but also find an opportunity to invest, because our process does help to de-risk with the amount of customer interaction that we do. COVID had a clear impact on the length of the program. So as you see, we sort of scratched out the 12 weeks and went to 16 weeks. We've actually, as we shifted to a fully virtual process as far as the accelerator was concerned, added about 4 weeks of incubation on the front end of the 14-week accelerator program. And we did this for a reason. One of the things that we're really good at, Collins plays a huge role in that, is teaching these guys how to talk to banks. Many of them are very much in love with their solution and need to pay a little bit more attention to falling in love with the problem, but also the results that they're generating for the banks. So we use that 4 weeks ahead of time, which we've been able to do virtually with these companies that really and truly are around the globe. We're talking to the UK, India. Well, San Francisco is probably a separate country as well, but from all over different parts of the world, and getting them queued up to make sure that that they can, obviously compel the buyer who they're going to have a chance to talk with, who really does have the stroke to make the buying decision when we talk to the bankers and the product leaders inside of FIS and ICBA respectively, and make sure they're prepared. But more importantly, there's nothing kind of, I've always been opposed to sort of practicing on game day, as they said. So we can start week one with the accelerator, having them talk directly to banks, and they're well prepared to do that. So we've been able to increase dramatically the number of banks who have had a chance to participate. As you may or may not know, FIS, the ICBA, does make a seed investment in each of these companies coming in, about $75,000. As the companies have gotten more sophisticated in size, it's probably a little bit more of a nuisance than of an interest, but it does position FIS and the ICBA on their cap table to do follow-on investment. That can be a bit of a blessing and a curse should they not elect to. Clearly, an investor might ask, why didn't ICBA or FIS do more? But I will tell you that the investments that FIS and the ICBA have made in the companies that have come through our program have provided remarkable returns. One company that the ICBA invested in from the ICBA program has not only paid for this program in their interest for the last 3 years, but will pay for the next 3 years going forward. So a little bit of good, a little bit of lucky there. But again, I think we've got a process that helps to de-risk these very well for investment. We're well connected in the industry. We bring a lot of subject matter expertise to bear. Some of you, of course, are on this call today to help. We tried through the one-on-one process, again, something that Collins is very deeply involved with, to identify where are the gaps with these companies, where they need the help and support. Some of them struggle, obviously, from a business development perspective. The sales gap is probably one of the biggest. Some of them don't like to hear, as we've heard before, that the baby's a little bit ugly. Some of the leaders don't know when to relinquish the helm, if you will, to others. But we work through that with them. Even at a mature level, there's a lot of growth that occurs from when they start this program to conclude it. Many of you have been great mentors not only to the Venture Center, but also to these companies. And as I speak to bank engagement, this has sort of been our secret sauce. When we go back 5 or 6 years ago, we had about 20 banks who would step in and give a little bit of feedback, and more of sort of a Shark Tanky environment. And today that's evolved. So to give you some reflection on that, with the ICBA program this last year, over 124 banks engaged with these companies, roughly about 600 people. And so what does that look like? So they would come and spend 6.5 hours with us on Zoom, which I know sounds like a terrible slog. We did give them those 5 to 10 minutes to use the bathrooms and get a cup of coffee. But so what they actually do is they sit guided by our team at the Venture Center, Daniel, Hamza, Pierce, Collins, and they sit through 30-minute interactions where the first sort of 7 to 10 minutes is dedicated to the problem that they're solving, what's the relevance of their solution, and then a demonstration of the product. And then the last 20 minutes is dedicated to a collaborative environment. And I mentioned Shark Tank earlier. This is exactly what we've tried not to create. Ours is an opportunity for both the bank and the fintech to, leverage sort of our middle name to collaborate effectively, to help give that little tap on the rudder to maybe redirect this company just a little bit, or help adjust the sails, if you will, a little bit in terms of their direction. But a real opportunity for the bank to win, for the fintech to win, for the client, either ICBA or FIS, to win, and ultimately for the Venture Center to win. And we've seen remarkable things occur in those interactions. I think the other thing that's important is the way in which banks use that. And with COVID, we were able to go so much deeper and wider into the banks as it related to how they participated in these programs. And I'll pick on one of our friends here in Arkansas, who was Arvest. Arvest brought 65 people to bear for that 6.5 hour call. And so a couple things that are important about that. I kind of giggle that when we had the CEOs come to Little Rock and spend time with us, And these accelerators brought $1 million worth of economic impact per instance to our community. So that was a pretty great return for. We are a recipient of the accelerator grant, which is a $250,000 grant that helps fund this program. And we have matching dollars from each of our clients as it relates to that as well. So about $500,000 for each of these programs. But the important part, I think, about what happened with Arvest was, they not only used this as an opportunity to look at these solutions, and we've seen this with other banks, but also used it as an opportunity to help foster a sense of innovation and kind of what was happening in the future, what they should be looking for. So they use that internally from a cultural perspective as well as from a technological perspective. And one thing we've learned is that innovation in terms of fintech in particular, but as a whole, it starts at the top of the organization. If Gary Norcross and Rebecca Romero-Rainey didn't care about these programs, I don't think they'd be nearly as successful as they are. So when you have that opportunity, because I think innovation begins with culture, to do that, it's pretty remarkable. And as I said earlier, I like to giggle that we've been very proficient with Zoom. We've been using Zoom because we talked to companies all over the globe for so long. And as we sat in those conference rooms with these C-level leaders, I don't know why we never simply turned it on when they said, I wish my CIO was here or my CTO to participate in these meetings. But I guess you learn as you go along. So it's been a great program. And we always celebrate what we do. There is obviously some theater to our work. We want to make sure that the stakeholders in our community, you folks, know about what we're doing, can help promote it, can direct great companies to us, can help support these companies, can be great hosts and ambassadors when they're in our community and visiting with us. So demo day, kickoff, those things are important to us. And plus we do a great job of showing them around Arkansas. We take them up to Mount Magazine for a weekend. They spend about 3 days in Northwest Arkansas. So we try to give them a pretty good look-see. We don't put a gun to their head, but we have had some success. As you know, we've had about 6 companies who have made Little Rock their home as a result of this program, and the great work that the ADC, obviously the Chamber, and Jay, who does such a great job with companies like helping Uday with his visa and so forth, with Bond, who's made a move here some time ago. And we're actually in conversations with a couple at this point, Secure Tech in particular, that we hope to see make that move in the next year or so. I want to move along here because I'm always talking too much. A little bit of program alumni. We've put 87 companies through. We'll hit 97 as we look at the selection that's just made for the ICBA. One of the big differences, a lot of folks have this sort of stereotypical perception of accelerators and incubators. And oftentimes, I think they're a little bit of a petting zoo, and we've tried to avoid that. They oftentimes are built to sort of hold up shiny objects in front of investors and corporate entities to decide what, sort of like these apps where you swipe right and left, yes, no, and indifferent. That's not what we built here at all. We are problem focused and solution driven. And I think that's why our outcomes are really converse to what you typically see, which is about anywhere from a 3 to 4% success rate coming out of these programs. Many folks who have startups go to accelerators to die. And that's not what we've done here. We still have 90% of these companies still active or acquired. We've had a unicorn. Many of you know we were the first money in Flutterwave in the first year, about $50,000 that gave the Venture Center an extraordinary return to support our endowment. But more importantly, FIS has made a huge investment, and then they've been remarkable as they bring the payments platform to Africa. The average capital raise coming out of our program is about $7.5 million. And part of this is because of the way in which, through the collection of data, the interaction with banks, and the information that we can ascertain, the way in which we can de-risk these companies for further investment. And so lastly, 80% of these companies have been able to acquire follow-on capital post-program as a result of how we help to support them. So we're very proud of the efforts that we've made here, and how we're helping to bring fintech not only to this industry, but many of you have heard me talk before, is we can no longer think about fintech as a vertical. We have to think about fintech absolutely as a horizontal. And it is an artery that runs through all industry. And as we work with UAMS and think about Arkansas from an ag perspective, we want to see how we can bring many of these solutions that have much more difficult regulatory challenges than perhaps healthcare, et cetera, to bear. And we've had some great success actually with UAMS as it relates to bringing some of these solutions there to help them kill the fax machine, for example, through a company called BotDoc. So we're proud of this work. We'll continue to do it. Keys to success. This is sort of a bit of a summary of what I've talked about today. Obviously, starting with the relevant problems. Recruiting is a never-ending process for us. Making sure the right stakeholders are involved in the process. A go-to-market focus. We truly accelerate these companies. Our secret sauce relates in how we work at customer discovery at scale here, but also for these companies. We do a great job, but obviously they want the relationships with ICBA and FIS respectively. FIS gives them access to 23,000 banks globally, and the ICBA 4,500 nationally. So that distribution channel, if you're an early stage company, you can go through the long slog of knocking on one door at a time. But we do give them the opportunity to go one to many. And that's important, and it really has enabled us. Again, if you think about their opportunity to have this interaction and collaboration, as in the last program, well over 100 banks over a 12-week period, is it impossible for them to do on their own? It probably is. So it's one of the reasons why they get such great direction, feedback, but also growth from this. The validation is important, creating the right environment. One of the things as the bankers come in and our subject matter experts come into the program to participate, one of the things that is very important is to get their mindset right. This is not Shark Tank. You don't have to be Mr. Wonderful or Mark Cuban, but rather here's an opportunity to be in a safe and a transparent environment where collaboration can occur. Stimulating the culture of innovation has been important for us, celebrating through Demo Day, as I mentioned, and then continuing to work with these companies. The accelerator for us is not an end when it concludes. It's much more of a beginning with how do we continue to help them work through the big green machine that's called FIS, which can be challenging for sure, and also have them continue to work with community banking. We continue to take this cohort around the country as we meet with the ICBA affiliates. I was in California recently at the California Community Bankers Network meeting, where we had a couple of our alums there from the FIS program and the ICBA program and talked about what we do. We recently did this at BCBA in Virginia, also Daniel yesterday in Chicago and Illinois. So we're very active on an annual basis to continue to present them and try to help community banking. Lastly, talking about the COVID response, which I think was very much the purpose of today. We went to what I think was the last convention on earth, which was the ICBA Live program. And I have a picture of us walking through the Orlando airport around 18 March 2020 and my team. And, this was almost canceled. Community bankers are extraordinary people, and they care about their communities. They care about each other. Fundamentally small business people, many of them multi-generational. They are not folks who like to fist bump and wear masks, let me assure you. And at this event, it was not, it was about learning to social distance, but there was a lot more hugging going on that probably should have been at that time. But as we left, we were to come to our demo day, and we were standing up our demo day here in Little Rock. And of course, we immediately pivoted to having to do that virtually and learning how to do that at scale to bring hundreds of people together to see these companies, to bring them in from all over the world to be able to present effectively and do that. So it worked out pretty well. The thing for me as a leader that was so difficult was just the uncertainty in being able to make decisions. And I know many of you feel that pain and do in your business, but we were thinking in 30-day increments at that point. Well, this will be over with in a month, and we'll all go back to what we were doing. And obviously, we know that was not the outcome, but it was a challenge. And I know, once again, many of you helped me with that decision process who were part of this, James, of course, and my board. But we just had to take it in sort of 30-day increments, and then we had to think about how do we support our community to make sure they get a chance to see the work that we're doing. And so we had to redefine our approach, because as things began to get worse and restrictions started to be put into place, we were always pretty lucky at the Venture Center, because most of we enjoy about 4,000 square feet on the top floor of the tech park. And with the team of about 9, it was pretty easy to social distance. But I felt a huge responsibility not to assemble people and to send my team home and to minimize their exposure. So we did. And I as a lonely guy, went from my apartment at the corner of 6th and Main when I was downtown to the office every day, 2 blocks to an empty office, and finally said to my wife, I probably ought to come back to Delaware to be with you. And I did, and spent a good bit of time there. But we did have to refine our approach to FIS and build that, as a 100% virtual platform. I talked about the PPP showcase. That was a huge win for us, and really was a feel good in terms of how we were able to help community banking, and the outcome for Joe and many of the companies, Street Chairs and others who participated in that. I mean, these guys stood up, man. And I really like to think that community banking was sort of the ventilators for small business, if you will, during this pandemic. And so great things came from that, and great results. And we were very, very proud to be a part of helping to support that. When we looked at our selection process, as we started to think about our next accelerator, it didn't change in terms of process, but clearly the world had changed, right? I know there's probably a few of you on here who prior to the pandemic didn't get your groceries delivered and maybe never used contactless payments. So needless to say, the way in which adoption and the importance from everything from a restaurant being able to provide delivery to how do you generate a menu, and how do we transact without cash, and how do we work with Uber and Lyft and these sort of folks, and how are banks going to manage through this, et cetera. So we did have to rethink the demand for the types of solutions that we were looking for. And, interestingly enough, they didn't change as dramatically as you might think, because a lot of those technologies were very much in market. It was more a question of adoption. And obviously that changed dramatically. The overseas, a lot greater than it did here in the States. But I think it's changed all of our behaviors. And if you, again, take a step back and look at the importance that fintech plays and how we transact, it is the backbone of that today. And then, of course, you drop things like crypto in there and so forth, and it's becoming even more interesting. And then, it's also, I think, helped to advance how we're thinking about how we're serving the unbanked and the unbanked, the underbanked and the unbanked and the underserved. And the stuff that Elizabeth and Vance are doing with Darren are just remarkable, and really excited to see the great work that comes from that. And hopefully we can contribute there as well in some fashion. I mentioned bank engagement changed dramatically. Clearly the pros were that the banks were able to engage more people, or the engagement was deeper. We saw a lot more banks than we would have typically seen clients and so forth. So I think that was great. So I think our solutions became more prolific in this process, and more people adopted it as a result of that. The cons for us, we were talking earlier, Jerry was mentioning a little bit about water cooler conversations, and of course Ben mentioned too about the lack of interaction. And I made the joke about my team going feral, and I had to put little plates of food to get them to come back into the office. But the one of the big benefits, there's 3 things that are very important to us as we bring these cohorts to Little Rock. One is, look, if you want to meet with the banks, this is where they're going to be. So that's changed because they can be anywhere. Secondly, we want them to see Arkansas because we want to be supportive of our stakeholders and help grow, the economy in our state. So obviously that is important to us, and something that has been difficult to show Mount Magazine in the Ozarks and Northwest Arkansas, and downtown Little Rock virtually. But the last and one of, I think, the most important things is we have a lot of fun with these guys when they're in town, and we take them down to Collins's lake house, and they do a little water ski, and Collins gets to show off, right? And which he's pretty good at. But the other side of it too, of course, is the opportunities that they get to work together. And that has been lost. And you can do all the virtual happy hours and breakout rooms that you want to, but it's sort of like going to a conference, right? We all go to conferences. There's great content, but the commisery and the community and the camaraderie that occurs at over a scotch at the bar at night is probably some of the most important time. And that's the thing that's missed here. The other thing is that many of them have different skills. Some are great technically, some are great from a business development perspective, some are great leaders, some are great marketers, and they really love to help each other because they're non-competitive. And that has been, to me, a huge miss. And hopefully, as we go back to this next cohort, we'll come into the ICBA program, we will be taking a hybrid posture, and I'll talk about that just a little bit as I conclude here. So the FIS program continues to evolve. We see greater demand from them into the capital markets and payments area, not just banking. We are delighted to have Rob Lee, who really was one of sort of FIS's internal founders, if you will, for this program, back as he leads what's called Impact Ventures, as the president of Impact Ventures with FIS as the leadership now of this program as FIS continues to expand its footprint, if you will, in terms of innovation. So we're very fortunate to be back with Rob. You know, as we look to the ICBA program, which will begin really in a few weeks as we complete selection, we have 7 companies picked. We have 3 more to go, but we will be going with a hybrid strategy moving forward. So what does that look like for us? That'll be about 4 to 5 weeks on the ground in Little Rock, and the balance, of course, will be done virtually. We will bring them here for kickoff. They'll be here for the first week. Some of you will come and help, most of you, in fact, to welcome them to town at the chamber dinner. We'll have kickoff at the Venture Center. We'll take them to Mount Magazine for a weekend where we get a chance to work with them, understand their gaps, bond a little bit. We have Greg Palmer, who leads Finovate, come and talk about their programming and what they do. But more importantly, Greg works with thousands of fintechs each year for Finovate's pitch aspect for their program. He's a great guide, gives great guidance to these companies and how to effectively speak to banks. So that'll be part of that. And then we'll let them go back to where they roost in various parts of the world. And then we'll bring them back in mid-session. We'll have a couple of huge community days where we'll bring many bankers in from around the country for some big group days. Also some of the cores. One of the nice things about the ICBA program is the neutrality that the Venture Center enjoys, which is, again, being a nonprofit, enables us to work with virtually all of the cores. So Fiserv, Jack Henry, FIS, CSI, et cetera, do come and participate to look at these companies during the course of the program. So they will likely come through at that time. We'll then have ICBA's demo day, which is what they refer to as their national convention as ICBA Live. And that will occur this year in San Antonio. So we'll take them down there. We'll spend some time between San Antonio and Austin. We have a close relationship with Encore Bank, who's just started an innovation center down in Austin. We're going to go spend some time with those folks. And then we'll send them back home. And then we will not see them again until April. We will do the ICBA Accelerator demo day at what is going to be our first national convention that the Venture Center is going to lead this year on FinTech. That'll be a boutique type of an event. I hope you all will attend. We'll have some great folks there. It will be very much like our programs, that it will be solution driven with not only our alumni, but other FinTech solutions led by what we think are going to be some great subject matter experts addressing the key problems that are affecting banking on a national and a global basis. It will be somewhat boutique oriented the first year with about 750 people. We're calling it Vencent. So they will present at that occasion. We hope to see you there on April 11th. It's a little bit of a commercial at the end there, my apologies. But that pretty much concludes it. We're again, this was our last demo day, which was at the Rep, which was such a great venue for this. We had such great fun doing this. And the last point too is I'm proud as you look over this group to reflect on the importance of diversity and inclusion as we build our programming. We've had a chance to work with people like Abby and obviously Paul and others, but more importantly is as you look at our cohorts, our first objective is to select great companies that are providing the right solutions for our clients, but they also care about this a lot. And when you see, a couple of women founders in the fintech space today, that's just very unusual. And unfortunately, we all know that it's mostly a lot of, it's a little bit, as they like to say, a little bit too male, pale, and stale. So we're trying to help with that a little bit, and obviously folks of color, Latinx as well, and we're just very proud that our cohorts have been 30% women, about 40 to 50% more of the underserved folks. So we continue to care about that, and so do our partners. So we look forward to bringing this back to Little Rock, and we'll look to do that in April. So thanks very much, and I apologize if I spoke too much and talked too long. So.
It's great. It is just really great to hear from you, Wayne. I guess I hope everybody can tell that a lot of the success of the Venture Center has to do with Wayne. He has really turned it into a machine where he understood who the players were and who could contribute money and how to make this thing move forward. And it's been magical to watch his success as this thing.
I'll interrupt again. I tell you, I've always believed in Steve Jobs' mentality. You hire smart people to tell you what to do. Who is a leader, part of an organization, knows here, it is about the people that you surround yourself with. And I am just blessed. And I look at Daniel's growth and even how Brian, left our company to went and start Abaca and his trajectory, the way in which my board has supported me, Mimi San Pedro, who's been just such a great addition, Collins's contribution, who mentors me almost on a daily basis and gives me guidance, and people like John Haley this is I appreciate the accolades, but they are not mine to take. They belong to my team and to the community that supports me. And and listen, there's a lesson there today. There's not a thing we do today that doesn't require some sort of collaborative effort, and you got to be open to that and transparent. And I've been given the platform and have been able to perhaps suggest this is the direction, but my team tells me what to do. Let me tell you, I work for them. So,
okay, very good. Fantastic presentation, very informative.
thank you very much.